everyone. Hello, hello. Now, the first speaker of this year, Kinsey Ann Durham. She's an engineer at DigitalOcean, and she is also the co-founder of Kubmo, a nonprofit that helps women finding their way in tech. Today, she's gonna tell us about breaking the chains of oppressive software. Give her a warm welcome.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Awesome. Great. Hi, everyone. Good to see all of you. I'm Kinsey, and I am based in Denver, Colorado. So I spend a lot of time in Vail, Colorado, which I don't know if any of you have heard of Vail. It's a mountain town about 2 hours outside of Denver, and it was actually modeled after Bavaria here. So I'm really excited. Yeah, it is. I even Googled it, so you know it's true. This is a picture of Vail, and I have to say it looks pretty similar. So I'm really excited to be here. I spend a lot of time in Vail because I really like to fly fish. I don't know if any of you have ever been fly fishing or heard of it, but I really like it when I'm not coding, writing code, or doing anything like that. I'm in the mountains, and this is my dog Harleigh at a lake near Vail. So yeah, if you're ever in the United States, come say hi in Colorado. It's beautiful. But I have to say it's a lot prettier here, but maybe just because the mountains are a lot taller. So yeah, I work for a company called DigitalOcean. Who here has heard of DigitalOcean? Wow, that's really awesome. Do you guys use it to deploy your software? Anyone? Okay, cool. If you answer, hey, at least you heard of DigitalOcean. So previous to this, I worked at a company called Go Spot Check. I worked on a team that used machine learning to build image recognition software. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about AI and things like that. So I wanted you guys to know that I have been in that world before. So I'm going to stop talking about myself, and this is kind of what we're going to go through for the next 20 to 30 minutes. So I am going to be talking about biases. So a bias is a cause to feel or show inclination or prejudice for or against someone or something. So you may think that I'm going to come up here and talk about unconscious biases in tech companies. It's a great topic, but we've definitely heard about this before. And I really think that it's more than that. It's actually biases in our code, specifically biases in our algorithms. So algorithms are becoming increasingly more important. They're making really important decisions in our societies. It's not just search engines. It's everything from online review systems to educational evaluations, the operation of markets to how political campaigns are run, and even how social services like welfare and public safety are managed. They are driven by data, and they are just continually dominating our daily lives. So a lot of times I've heard algorithms be referred to as black boxes, and that's because we put something in and we get something out, and it's impossible a lot of the time to see kind of what's going on inside of them. They have done a lot of good things. They have made a lot of things easier, like Lyft and Uber and different things like that. But I think it's really important for us to be aware because they can make mistakes and they can exercise their power over us. And my intent here isn't to demonize algorithms, because I do think they're awesome and have done a lot of good. But we have to recognize that they operate with biases like the rest of us. So there are two schools of thoughts around algorithms. One is that they are rational and objective, but are they? Are they really objective? Is the data that we're putting into them objective? Are they built with the idea that they need to be objective? And then the other school of thought is that algorithmic reasoning is fundamentally flawed. But is it? I really think that they are here to stay, regardless of what anyone thinks. But biased algorithms can be really dangerous. So now I want to get into how algorithms have reflected biases, and I have a few examples to show you all. So first, I'm sure all of you have used Google search, typed in Google and put a search term in. So here is a campaign. It's a quick little video that I wanted to share that UN Women did. So let me pull. Hopefully it works.
Amelia Earhart, and her epic solo flight from America to Ireland.
Saudi Arabian women.
Yeah, I was an advertising major in college before I learned how to write code, and a really cool advertising agency did that with UN Women. I thought it was so cool and so powerful. Yeah, and they really brought to light how, bad Google's search algorithms could be. And it wasn't just about women. You can Google different things like this and see very sexist and racist things. So Google uses Word2Vec, which is what we have to blame for this. It's actually really cool technology. It just obviously has its flaws. So back in 2013, a handful of researchers at Google created a neural network that has 3 million words in it from Google News text. And its goal was to look for patterns in the way that words appear next to each other. So it looks something like this. It was super complex, but the Google team discovered it could represent these patterns using vectors in a vector space with some 300 dimensions, which is crazy. And it turned out that words with similar meanings occupied similar parts of this vector space. And that's when we start to see the biases come through, right? Man is to computer programmer as woman is to homemaker. So we ended up getting not so positive terms together that shared the same vector space. Obviously, it was very blatantly sexist and racist. Another example are biases in image recognition. So I don't know if any of you saw this tweet. This was a while ago, where Google Photos labeled people of color as gorillas, which is obviously really, really offensive and terrible. So what Google did to fix it, they didn't try to, make their algorithm better or look at their data or how these words were being associated with one another. They actually just removed every primate image that they had. That was their solution. There's a ton of articles on this of people just ripping Google apart for how they fixed the problem. And there's a lot more instances of this for people of color. And addressing these issues will grow increasingly urgent as things like facial recognition software become more prevalent in law enforcement, border security, and even hiring. So another image recognition flop was Beauty AI, which was supported heavily by Microsoft, which really surprised me.
The world of artificial intelligence is affecting every aspect of our daily life. The beauty industry is no exception. Today, we would like to welcome you to the first beauty contest with an all-robot jury. Robots will look at your picture taken by a standardized app and compare you with millions of others. They will evaluate the main features, including symmetry, the world of artificial intelligence, and many other parameters affecting our perception of your beauty industry is no exception. Race and gender.
Is it playing twice? Was it playing double? Okay, that was really weird. Okay, anyways, we don't have to watch that video. It was just kind of introducing what Beauty AI was. So basically, it was an artificial intelligence beauty contest. So anyone in the world could enter. And basically, it had 3 algorithms that it used. It used a style of machine learning called deep learning, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. So what they do in deep learning is an algorithm is trained on a set of pre-labeled images so that when it's presented a new image, it can predict what it's looking at. So in the case of Beauty AI, all the algorithms were trained on open source machine learning databases that are shared between researchers. It did not evaluate skin color, and they had over 40,000 Indians and around 9,000 African Americans were among the participants that submitted their photo. So, of course, all the finalists were white. There was a few of Asian descent. But they blamed their data set that they trained their algorithms on. They said, hey, we mostly had white people who entered the contest, but that clearly wasn't true. Somehow their algorithm picked only white people or with light skin. There are also biases in LinkedIn's search engine. So I don't know if any of you have had this happen to you, but when you search for like a female contact on LinkedIn, you might get kind of a weird result. It always asks if you're searching for a man's name. So if you type in a search for Andrea Williams, it'll bring up a prompt asking if you meant Andrew Williams, even if you have a connection named Andrea Williams and not Andrew, which was pretty weird. So LinkedIn got a lot of flack for that one. LinkedIn defended itself by saying more males use their platform instead of women. Maybe that's because women are seeing these kind of results on their interactions in LinkedIn. Don't think that's a very good excuse. We also see biases in the court systems with algorithms, which really scares me. So there's something called the COMPAS algorithm. The COMPAS assessment is a secret algorithm that's used in the justice system to calculate the likelihood that someone will commit another crime. So they are predicting a defendant's risk of committing another crime and using that when they're sentencing people. Basically, someone who is arrested and is going to court, going through that whole process, they have to answer a 137-item questionnaire, just 137 questions, and this algorithm determines if they're going to commit another crime or not. I see a big problem with that. So Eric Loomis, this story, he pleaded guilty to eluding an officer and was sentenced by not only a judge, but this algorithm, this COMPAS algorithm. He was deemed at high risk of committing another crime and sentenced to 6 years in prison. No one knows what the algorithm saw, like it's a black box, right? We have no idea why. He appealed this ruling, saying that, hey, we don't know the inner workings of this algorithm. This violates the due process of law. It ended up going to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and they ended up ruling against him, noting that the sentence would have been the same regardless of the algorithm used. But we don't know that for sure. Obviously, this caused a lot of skepticism. Should we be using this COMPAS algorithm? So we will continue to see more and more court systems using software like the COMPAS system to determine sentencing. And if we know that these algorithms are biased, is that really a good idea? I think that poses a really huge threat. So the director of Criminal Law Reform Project says this, that he has this recurring fear that predictive algorithms are going to accentuate an already inequalities in our justice system. He also said that data in the criminal justice system is often unreliable, and we need to call into question this data and these results. There's also biases in recruiting algorithms. Let's see if this one works. Nope. The first one worked great. Okay, so, oh, yes. No sound. Okay, I don't have any more videos, but hopefully. Okay, basically I can tell you what this video is about. So Amazon was testing out this new AI software that they were using to recruit people. So basically they had 500 computer models with 50,000 search terms, and they needed to hire a ton of people. Obviously, Amazon is growing really quickly. So they scraped a bunch of people's resumes, LinkedIn, everything that they can find on the internet. And they found, of course, that it favored male engineers. And it was so biased, the algorithms that they created for this recruiting project, that they scrapped the project entirely. They weren't like, hey, we're gonna make this better. We're gonna figure out how to not make these algorithms biased. They just completely gave up on it. But who's to know that different companies aren't using algorithms like this that they secretly have? So now we're gonna kind of get into causes. So something that's making it worse is the provision of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And this was something that really surprised me when I was doing research. It basically prohibits investigating algorithms for biases. You can't create multiple accounts to portray someone else to see if your data is different based on something else. You can actually be criminally prosecuted. So the ACLU researchers and journalists are suing. You can also blame the lack of diversity in tech companies, right? There's not a lot of people who are very different who are questioning these. They don't see themselves represented, so, we don't know. We also have biases in our code that stem from our own personal biases. We can blame the software, which has been the tendency, but the code doesn't write itself. Algorithm creators, even if they strive for inclusiveness, build their creations, their own values and perspectives into their software. They obviously reflect the biases of the programmers. The data is also really biased. Data sets which we use have their own limits and deficiencies. If the data that we're using is biased, there's nothing we can do about it, no matter how great our algorithm is. And another question, or I guess bold question that I have, is the binary system itself biased? Is that what we have to blame? So the binary system, for those of you who don't know, is a strings of ones and zeros that serve as the foundation for all computer systems. It enables large numbers to be reduced and calculated efficiently, and enables a conversion of the alphabet and punctuation to ASCII. So you probably want to blame the Silicon Valley tech bro for the biases in binary itself, but it actually goes back way further than that, to this guy. Does anyone know who this is? Close. Aristotle. Close. I don't know, maybe they're not. Yeah, this is Aristotle. So he came up with this idea of duality. He came up with Pythagoras' table of opposites, which is like finite, infinite, odd, even, one, many, right, left, man, woman. And hierarchical classifications dominate AI. So Aristotle's bias ranking is now being looped and reinforced by more than 15 million engineers, which I thought was a really interesting quote. So morality and the binary classification layers can be a disaster. The binary system doesn't account for morality or other factors because of this. We are living in a world of ones and zeros, and there's nothing more we can do about this. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Leibniz, he's a German philosopher. Leibniz, yes, okay. I knew you guys were gonna be able to help me, thank you. So he invented calculus, and he created the binary system sometime between 1697 and 1701 as a way to get yes-no verdicts faster and to reduce big numbers into more manageable units of ones and zeros. So instead of creating a coherent universal system, he created the binary system, which reinforced Aristotle's duality and further gridlocked us and the machines towards unnatural logic. So in NLP, which stands for Natural Language Processing Frameworks, which is really big in machine learning, our complex emotions are being crudely assigned as positive as 1 and negative as zeros. Also, big data graphs are made up of rows and columns of just ones and zeros. But the problem with binary logic is that it provides no scope for understanding and modeling why and how people have chosen one option over the other. Existing frameworks of computing are set up to be incapable of righting those wrongs too. And engineers are only writing code that fit into these limitations of the legacy logic, because that's all we know how to do. It's the only choice that we have. So to further dive into impact, we have to look at statistics of AI currently. 33% of enterprises now use AI according to Adobe, and that's just going to continue to grow. According to Stanford University, the number of active startups have increased by 1,400% since 2000 using AI. 55% of human resource managers said artificial intelligence would be a regular part of their work within the next 5 years. And that's scary because, as we saw with the Amazon example, or we could have if the video had sound, that they had huge problems with their algorithms. Juniper Research discovered in the study that global spending in AI will grow to $7.3 billion a year by 2022. This is because companies will invest heavily in AI tools that will help them differentiate, improve their services they offer to customers and make them a lot faster. So AI is our future, and I think we all knew that. And the people who are going to suffer the most are poorer communities and minorities. Many researchers behind this technology say it could pose a greater threat to society by adversely impacting the poor and people of color. It's going to make the digital divide much more pronounced than it already is. Every time humanity goes through a new wave of innovation and technological transformation, there are people who are hurt, and there are issues as large as geopolitical conflict, and AI is no exception to this. And we are in that time now. They're making really vital decisions. Who gets a job interview? Who gets granted parole? Who gets a loan? AI powers a speech recognition that makes Siri and Alexa work on our phones. It underpins useful services like Google Photos and Google Translate. It helps Netflix recommend movies, Pandora suggests songs, and Amazon push products. And it's the reason that self-driving cars can drive themselves. So imagine a scenario where the government will have banned innocent people from boarding planes, insurers will have raised premiums for the wrong people, and predictive crime prevention will sentence people to longer prison sentences because of these algorithms. So we need to have this conversation because our technologists are no longer just developing apps. They're developing political and economic systems. And we're relying on algorithms so much. Will our global society become more racist, more sexist, and more intolerant of differences? So what can you do? You could design a non-binary categorization system in AI, but I don't think anyone has time to do that. So how can we make algorithms work in unbiased ways? How can we deploy algorithms ethically and responsibly? Can we program morality? I think we need to start asking ourselves these questions and thinking more about it. But what can we start doing now? We can vote. We can vote for candidates that support policies that check AI and believe in science and the power of algorithms. This is pretty, policymakers do have power to be able to do this, make policies that check it. This is really specific to the US, but this scared me when I saw it, that they are no longer actively engaged in AI policy. We can make code of conducts. We have great code of conducts for conferences, open source contribution, specifically related to AI, testing your algorithms, data sets, etc. Obviously, we could have a whole talk on this, greater diversity in the engineers building these algorithms, and no one can seem to solve this problem that's so inherent in our industry, even though it is getting better. We can also be aware of our own biases. Has anyone taken the implicit test that Harvard does? No one? You guys should take it. I can send this out after I took it, and I was like, oh, I'm cool. I'm a woman. I know what's up. And I took it, and I was shocked at how biased I was. It really freaked me out. So I think just being aware of it is good. They're pretty fun. You can do a bunch of different ones. You could also reduce biases in your code reviews. I thought this was super interesting. Mozilla now has an extension in Firefox where you can anonymize your pull requests, and I thought that was really interesting and something that I want to start doing, so no one can see you're the one that wrote the code. But we must demand algorithmic accountability. Google, Microsoft, and IBM have already begun to voice their opinion on wanting to do this. You can audit your algorithms. There's actually a company that just audits algorithms. It's called ORCAA, and they have 0 customers right now. So they're about to go out of business, which shocked me. This woman being interviewed in the article who started this company said, yeah, no one cares. You can also use the fairness tool, which was developed by Accenture and with the help of researchers from the Alan Turing Institute. Basically, what it does is it identifies and removes any coordinated influence that may lead to an unfair outcome. Rather than just simply highlighting the problem, it also fixes it, specifically in your data, which is really cool. And then it also addresses the actual algorithm to make sure that false positives and false negatives are fairly distributed, but they also give you the means to resolve the algorithm. So be transparent about your data sets and algorithms. Don't make it a black box. Encourage your stakeholders to allow you to do this, because I know a lot of times companies aren't that cool. So how can we hold our algorithms accountable? Can you trust your own data? Go above and beyond the story that you're working on. Bring it up in sprint planning meetings, bring it up in code reviews, etc. We need to consider ways to incorporate ethics into our algorithms. In the bigger picture, we need to step back. You can educate yourself. There's a ton of interesting articles on this stuff. Some are easier to read than others, I will admit. You can also reverse engineer your algorithm. Journalists and engineers at larger tech companies have started to do this. After they use their algorithm for a while, they go back and check the results to see if they make sense and to see if they notice any biases. Also, push back on speed. And this could be a whole other talk. We're constantly told that we need to get our software out quicker. Code quality suffers, but so can negative side effects of our algorithms. Because when we have small groups of programmers developing an app, we usually don't care about racial bias. They just want to go to market quickly. And this was the chief science officer from Beauty AI, which we saw earlier, had negative effects. And why should you care? Why should you care as a developer? It's because we are writing these algorithms. We know how to build these algorithms. Ethics and morality are not a part of learning code. Computer science education, going to code school, boot camp, no one ever talks about ethics or morality in writing code. But I really think it needs to be. We're handing people that we are teaching a loaded gun, a lot of power to do good, but also to cause harm. And do you ever think about these things when you write code? I never did. I was working on image recognition software and I never thought about it, but I was also working on image recognition software for a can, so that wasn't that big of a deal. But we do have the power to do something. So this quote, I had a lot of smart people tell me you can't build a company around developers. They don't control the checkbook. They don't make the technology buying decisions. We just do what we're told. And this is so false, and we all know that. I think we're the ones that have all the power. We're the ones with the knowledge to build these things, and we all know that knowledge is power. So yeah, we really do have a lot of power as developers. And we will be faced with these moral issues continually and even more so. We are faced with these moral issues today, and ethics need to be a part of the conversation. Code and algorithms can impact our liberties, and we are the ones responsible. So let's use our power wisely. Let's set an example for the future of developers, and let's change the world for the better, because we really do have the power to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Kinsey. Thank you for the call to action.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and thanks to Ruby on Ice for hosting such an awesome conference. Yeah, and these are some of the articles and papers that I read about this stuff, and I can also send out the implicit bias test if anyone wants to take it. It's pretty interesting.
Yes, please do. And this is for you.
Oh,
so
thank you.
You can bring this little corner of Bavaria with you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.